A warm welcome and thank you for joining us on the program. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Key developments in Nigeria's economy in the first quarter of the year have taken center stage. Major macroeconomic variables such as the gross domestic product, the naira exchange rate, the inflation rate, as well as the debt sustainability rate has raised concerns among industry watchers in recent times. At its 2022 first quarter economic review in Lagos, the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf, estimates that Nigeria's debt could reach 50 trillion naira within a short time. It joins me now to discuss some of these concerns and their implications for the economy. Thank you very much for your time. Let's begin with Nigeria's rising debt, which according to the federal government stands at 39.5 trillion naira as at December 2021. In its defense, the government says the nation's rising debt is a revenue problem. What then is the solution?
Well, the debt situation is a very worrisome situation. Even though the Debt Management Office puts the figure at about 39.5 trillion. If we take into account other components of debt, which are not normally captured in the figures presented by the DMO, we can estimate that our current debt level is about 50 trillion. I'm talking here about the government's indebtedness to the central bank. That is nothing less than 10 trillion. Then we have the AMCON debt, which is also sovereign debt. That's also somewhere between 5 to 8 trillion. By the time you add that to the stock of debt that the DMO has reported, you're already over 50 trillion. So the debt situation is something that is of concern to stakeholders in the economy. First, from the point of view of the burden of servicing the debt. As at November last year, the total amount that had been committed in actual terms to debt servicing was about 4.2 trillion. How much did we spend on infrastructure? I'm not sure it's up to half of that. And even the debt payment, interest payment to central bank was 1.1 trillion. That is to underscore the size and the magnitude of the amount of indebtedness of the government to the central bank. So it's a major issue. Although the government often say that based on debt to GDP ratio, we are still within a comfortable threshold. But some of us argue that you don't service your debt with GDP. You service your debt with revenue.
Now, we've seen a rise in inflation rate. Though March, the inflation rate for February rose to 15.70%. How has this rise in inflationary pressure impacted the economy?
The inflation rate as reported by the Nigeria National Bureau of Statistics, for me, understates the magnitude of the inflationary problem. Because if you look at the rate at which prices have increased in the last 1 year, it's far in excess of 15.7%, which was reported by the Debt Management Office. I'm not contesting their figure, but I'm just saying that as far as the average Nigerian is concerned, and as far as businesses are concerned, the rate of inflation in the last 1 year has been between 30% to 100%. Because inflation is a measure of the rate of increase in prices. And we know that within the last 12 months, some prices have doubled. Some have increased by almost 150%. Some have increased by almost 200%. Look at the cost of diesel. Diesel today is about 700. How much was diesel 1 year ago? Look at bread. Look at some basic things that the average people consume. So the inflationary situation is an extremely bad situation, and it's taking a huge toll, not just on the economy, not just on investments, but also on the welfare of the people.
Now, which brings me to another concern, that's the depreciation of the naira in the parallel market. What can be done to prevent further decline?
Well, the depreciation of the naira is driven by both what we call external factors and domestic factors. For the external factors, we don't have much control over the external factors. Of course, we have what is happening globally. We have issues around competitiveness and so on and so forth. Domestically, we have the challenge of the structural problems. Structural problems determine the capacity to be able to export. It determines the capacity of how productive the economy is. It's also a major factor in the productivity and competitiveness of the economy. And when your economy is not competitive in terms of its product that is pushing out to the global market, you cannot earn much in terms of foreign exchange. So we have an issue of productivity and competitiveness within our economy, which is driven largely by structural problems and to some extent institutional problems. Then the domestic policy problem has to do with the foreign exchange policy that has been put in place by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The foreign exchange policy is more or less a fixed exchange rate regime. And that has created a very wide gap between the official window and the parallel market window. And when you have this kind of situation, it creates a lot more incentive for pressure to come onto the official window. And it also creates a major disincentive for foreign exchange to come into the economy legitimately. So it's a double jeopardy. So there's a major issue with the foreign exchange policy. And we believe that if we are able to ensure a market-driven exchange rate, especially in the investors and the exporters window, we are likely to see a lot more inflows into the economy in terms of forex. We are likely to see a lot more credibility in the market. We are likely to see a lot more transparency in the market. And we are likely to see a lot more a heightened investors' confidence in the economy. So those are the things. We have the policy problem, and we also have the structural problem. Those are the things I think has been contributing to this. And of course, we have the problem of insecurity in the oil-producing areas, which has been limiting our capacity to also generate a lot more foreign exchange from our oil sector. Because right now, with what is happening globally in the energy market, this is the time that oil-producing countries should be smiling. There's a windfall now that oil-producing companies are getting, but are we getting it? No. We can't even meet our OPEC quota because of the problem of oil theft and because of a lot of inflows again on the importation of petroleum products. So whatever we even realize, the whole thing is going back, for the importation of petroleum products. So those are the factors that have been responsible for the depreciation of the currency. And if you must fix it, those are the factors to look at in fixing it.
So finally, before I let you go, let's talk about some wins. Nigeria's GDP grew by 3.40% in 2021 year on year, marking the highest GDP growth rate in 2015. How would you rate this development?
Well, it's a positive development. But again, if you talk to the citizens, what is the impact of that on their lives? What's the impact of that on welfare? If you talk to business people, what is the impact of the GDP growth on their businesses? So there's a major disconnect between the GDP numbers and the worries and the concerns of both the citizens and businesses. The citizens and businesses are worried a lot more about what is happening to the currency depreciation, what is happening to liquidity in the foreign exchange markets, what is happening to insecurity, what is happening to energy costs. Those are the more fundamental issues. GDP, yes, but GDP in this context can only be academic. The bigger issues are the issues that are driving costs, institutional issues, security issues, structural issues, competitiveness of the economy itself. Those are the bigger issues.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for that.
Well, Dr. Muda Yusuf, Chief Executive Officer, the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, thank you very much for your contribution. And we'll take a breather here, but when we return, we'll turn our focus on the oil and gas sector and attempt to find out who is stealing Nigeria's precious crude. Don't go away. Welcome back. While the exact amount Nigeria loses to oil theft is well known, the identity of these criminals remains a mystery. Amid plunging revenue base, the federal government disclosed that a whopping sum of $3.27 billion worth of oil had been lost to vandalism and theft in the past 14 months. The government also said high-level cases of oil theft had become a threat to the country's corporate and economic existence, with the industry now thinking of transporting crude oil from fields to export terminals by trucks. Another solution, according to the federal government, is the deployment of about 40 warships, 200 gunboats, 5 helicopters, the Special Boat Service and several other units to a 3-month special operation to stop oil thieves from further sabotaging the nation's oil and gas installations. But who is stealing Nigeria's crude oil? And would this new special operation be the solution? Diron Faribe, oil and gas expert, joins me now to find answers to these questions. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, let's begin with the federal government's deployment of a special operation unit. Will this bring sanity to Nigeria's problem of oil theft?
Well, I think the issue of oil theft is not new. And it used to be said that a stitch in time saves 9. If at the time the oil theft was on a small scale, we had taken adequate measures to combat this menace, it will not have reached the level it is now, whereby it has now led to outcry by prominent Nigerians, both in the oil and non-oil industry, about the menace and the impact on the Nigerian economy. And this has forced the president to take strong measures and give directive to NNPC and the Ministry of Petroleum, as well as the security agencies, to be very, very proactive and take immediate and serious measures to combat this menace. And I'm just wondering if we had taken adequate measures over the past few years, adequate measures, it would not have reached this level of atrocity being committed by people who are saboteurs of the Nigerian economy. A lot is being said about the illegal refineries, but given the amount of oil being said to be stolen, it couldn't possibly be only for illegal refineries. It could only mean that some of the crude oil used to be shipped or taken out of the country illegally. So I think the measures to be taken by government will now have to be based on investigations, thorough investigation that has been made concerning the issue.
Now, it's been established that Nigeria loses a lot of revenue to crude oil thieves, but how do these criminals gain access to these pipelines in the first place?
See, we're talking about the Navy. The Navy will come in if the oil is being transported by sea and shipped out of the country. But if the theft is done by the people who are trucking, they are trucking the oil in tankers. Of course, we know that if you truck, it will possibly end in tankers, in vessels that will be for the oil to be shipped out of the country. Then the one of the legal refineries will be another issue. So there must be a comprehensive investigation as to what is the modality, the network of the being deployed or being employed for the theft. What portion or proportion of the oil being stolen through the pipeline, which one is being stolen at the terminal, which one is being stolen at the oil field, and so on. So there has to be point-by-point investigation to examine and find out where the oil is being stolen. See, we know that over time, government has been engaging the communities by way of giving contract to some people in the oil-producing state with a view to be keeping surveillance over the pipeline, where some of these thefts used to take place. What is currently happening shows the ineffectiveness of this arrangement. Or is it that some of the contractors are actually colluding, or they are taking part in this? Allegation has been made severally that some of the security agencies were actually involved in this.
Now, another question begging to be answered is why the federal government has not been able to track who these thieves are, and why do they still have a market to sell their loot?
Well, you see, it's you have touched some critical areas of this problem. Now, like I said before, government has to make it a very serious action, because when say 70%, 80% of the oil being produced, especially in the onshore territory, is being stolen. What it means is that the thieves, the oil thieves, cannot penetrate the deep water, and that is where the FPSOs are operating. And then there are some other offshore terrains, offshore locations where they cannot reach. So essentially, the theft is taking place in the inland basin, that is onshore locations, and probably a few some areas in shallow waters where the thieves could have access. But the fundamental thing is that wherever the theft may be taking place, the security agencies must be able to tackle this. But it's not just a question of government making declaration as to effort to be made. The oil being stolen is not something you can put in a box or in a bag, or you can put in your pocket. You cannot even put it in your car. It's a massive kind of pollution, which involves, a lot of people who are conniving, who are conspiring, to sabotage the economy. And if that is the case, then there must be some level of security measures all over the place to ensure that such people are caught. And if you catch people who are engaging in these nefarious activities, and you just let them go, just like that, of course, it will embolden some others, in doing this kind of thing. So, if over time the government has been prosecuting and then some of the culprits, some of the oil thieves, it will have served as deterrent to others. But it's like there is some level of impunity, going on. But now that the president has issued orders, to the various organs of government to get into this, one believes that they should take the orders of the president very, very seriously. And in fact, some people ought to be made to accountable for this.
Nigeria lost over $2 billion to crude oil theft and vandalism in 2020, but this is of course a big deal. Could you paint a picture of how this can affect key investors, especially since some of these IOCs have begun divesting from Nigeria?
Well, one can see that these funds have contributed to the decision of the IOCs to divest from the country, especially in these areas of operation. You see some of the oil companies, IOCs, they are leaving the operation in the offshore areas and shallow waters, ostensibly to give room for Nigerian smaller companies, indigenous companies, to operate in this area. But with this amount of oil taking place, and even Nigerian independent companies are now shouting at the rooftop that if you are supposed to be producing 50,000 barrels per day of oil, and the thieves are leaving you with only 5,000 to 10,000 barrels per day, and the oil being stolen, you can imagine the amount of investment that have been going on to ensure that such operations, was actually took place, whereby these people now came down to see the oil. There are some of the independents who went to international capital market to borrow money, and now when the oil that is supposed to get revenue to be able to pay for the investment, be able to pay for the loans, is being to be derived from the crude oil is being stolen. They are actually plunging such companies into a serious trouble and getting them to the point of inability to pay back, the loans that they have taken to buy the asset. And so the international companies will then be looking at Nigerians and laughing at us that, okay, the music they have been playing for them is now being played for Nigerians. But it's a very serious problem because we still know that there are quite a lot of assets, even in shallow waters and the inland business that needs a lot of investment. This will obviously scare not only foreign investors, but even local investors. And the effect on the economy will be very, very serious. A situation where you cannot hope to invest and be able to recover your investment, doesn't augur well for our country. And how do we want to provide employment for female youths that we are shunning out of our institutions of higher learning in the country? If some of the places where they are supposed to work, have been devastated, and the pipelines that have been damaged, vandalized, it's causing environmental degradation, in the oil producing communities. And these people never consider for 1 minute and the problem they are causing for the communities. And so these are some of the issues that surround the oil theft. And government must take very, very strong action to ensure that if these people, of course, they are not ghosts, they are not from another planet. We are Nigerians and humans that have legs and arms, and they can easily be identified and found out. And such people must be punished or must be made to face the wrath of the law.
Well, Diron Faribe, Chief Executive Officer, International Energy Services Limited, thank you very much for your contribution.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And it's a wrap on the program. Do join us again next week. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.